Hello, Charlie TCG here, and welcome back to Looking Ahead, the series where I break down and analyse the meta, what's happening over in Japan, and how will it impact Taiwan. Today, we're going to talk about how Japan's latest set will impact the post-rotation format. They just got their set Legal for Tournament Play Hot Area Arena for the City League Championships. So we're going to break down and see exactly what decks are doing well. Are some of the new owners Pokemon like Ethan's Ho-Oh or Cynthia's Garchomp performing as well as we think it is, or some other archetypes like Yamaga EX and Crustle actually being very good under the radar picks. Plus, we're also going to look at the Heavenly Kings list, see exactly what the top players in Japan think are the best way to play these new owners Pokemon. I just want to say thank you so much for the support on the channel. We are so close to 2,000 subscribers, and hopefully we can hit it by the next Looking Ahead video. So if you haven't and if you're brand new, please consider subscribing. And without further ado, let's jump right into the video. So let's start by looking at the new Heavenly Kings archetypes. They do this release of every single new set. What they are the biggest and best players in Japan, which really help promote the trading card game across all the players in Japan. So let's actually look at this new Cynthia's Garchomp. And I, for one, really like this archetype. This is one of the most hyped decks going into this new format. So, for those who don't know, there are some great things about the Cynthia archetype. First of all, we have Gabite, which has our search deck for any Cynthia's Pokemon and put into the hand, hence the very thick line of Garchomp. We have Roserade, which makes our Cynthia's Pokemon do 30 more damage. Then we have Garchomp EX, Cynthia's Garchomp, which for 1 energy, 100 damage, gets to draw some cards. We have attack, 2 fire energies, 260 damage, and a can't attack next turn. Hence, having the likes of Roserade, so you can boost out with damage output. With this one, you could do additional 90 more damage, so 350 damage is really, really powerful. You also have the Cynthia's Power Bangles, making sure Garchomp has pretty much 400 HP, which for one is very, very scary. Now, one thing which is very different about and very difficult with Garchomp 1 is it does have a very limited energy requirement by having 2 fighting energies, which is obviously really hard to actually energy accelerate. So the players here really recognize it, but going more of a toolbox style archetype, for heavy on the Arven, heavy on the town store, and also having EXP share as well. There's another way to actually energy accelerate to Garchomp. Also really like the Professor Cheer scenario, as it's going to have pretty much 400 HP. Garchomp needs to have a good sort of wall strategy, so picking up your very heavily damaged Garchomp, make sure it can't be easily cleaned up from a Dragapult or Dustle in the late style game. Or if you've got a ton of damage counter on the play, this is where Cynthia's Spirit Treatment is great, which has 10 times the amount of damage counters on all your Cynthia's Pokemon. Effectively, if you've got 2 Garchomps of 200 damage on this one, Cynthia's Spirit Treatment for 1 energy, 400 damage, very, very scary. Precious Trolley is another great way to actually fill up your board state with all your Gibbles and Roserade to actually get out this huge damage output in the late game. No good inbuilt draw factors, but with heavy counts on the Arven and Iona, which we are used to on Heavenly Kings, they're very much pure consistency. I, for one, think this is very strong. Another deck which I think I really love is Ethan's Magcargo. Now, it has huge remnants of the likes of Chien-Pao. You have Ethan's Ho-Oh EX, which lets you energy accelerate to your Ethan's Pokemon, and you have Magcargo, which has free retreat if it has no energies attached to this one, and for 3 fire energies, 70 damage times 50 for the amount of energies you discard from your Ethan's Magcargo. Now, if you have 2 Ethan's Ho-Oh EX and you have attachment for turn, that's effectively 5 energies, 350 damage. Well, that one hit kills pretty much everything in the format, which is very, very powerful. Now you have good ways to actually get your energies back by having the superior entry retrieval, by having the likes of Vessel to get cut energies from the deck, or even having that Night Stretcher as well. Obviously, we aren't playing the likes of Ethan's Gualava, which lets you search out for your Ethan's Adventurer, but I'm going to talk about that a little bit later because there is an Ethan's archetype which I think might actually be a little bit better than the start strategy, which I, for one, am really excited to see. Next one is Arven's Mabosstiff. Now, I thought this deck was going to be really strong at first, but the more I thought about it and more people have looked at it, it's definitely a little bit more disappointing. I always looked at it on its first attack, which does 30 plus additional 120 more, or is it 150? I always forget if it has no damage counters on this one, which is obviously great. You see Arven Sandwich to healing, but what this player has looked at is looked at the likes of Janine's Secret Act, Energy Switch, and Monkey Dory to have constant ways to actually move loads of damage off your Mabosstiff EX. And sometimes you can focus on this one, but you can also focus on its secondary attacks as well, which has 220 damage. But one thing I love about this one, as it is a dark type Pokemon, you can actually take advantage of Petron EX by switching it from the bench to the active swap, poison it using Binding Mochi. Now, as it actually hasn't taken any damage counters on this one, it actually works really, really well with actually having its secondary attack. Sorry, I meant first attack effect because it wouldn't have any damage counters. On this one, you can actually take full advantage and take nearly 200 damage with Mabosstiff EX's first attack, which I, for one, think is very, very powerful. And we are seeing that Shaman side pop in, which we're going to talk about again a little bit later. Having that damage protection, protecting it from the likes of Tera Bix as well as also Zoroark. And finally, the last owners Pokemon from a set release was this Misty's Gyarados, which is just a fallen down just a little bit. Obviously, does 70 damage times amount of Misty's Pokemon. You discard from the top of your deck. You have the likes of Misty Psyduck, which makes it on the bench. Discard it, pop it on the top of your deck. You have good ways to recover this one. Hassle to get some cards from your archetype. Your deck, when as soon as one is knocked out. Cthulhu to draw from the bottom of the deck, Drayton to search your deck, as well as also like sort of Sacred Ash and Night's Retro as well to kind of like have that good Pokemon recovery. And Starmie as well is another good way, it's another secondary attacking option when you evolve, do even more damage. Now, granted, I think this is a little bit too slow as of a deck. I think some other single prize archetypes, like for example, in Ethan's Typhlosion, is much more better than this one. But honestly, it's still nice to see this deck actually still see some sort of love. Now, let's actually see exactly the impact this new set has really had to the City Championship metagame. And we can see here, they have 31 of results so from different tournaments, and we can see it has changed just a little bit. Decks like Dragapult and Raging have actually skyrocketed up to the top, and likes of Tera Bix, which was up nearly 20% 2 weeks ago, have fallen down to 3.6%. Now, why did this happen? I have a couple of reasons. Number one, I think people were very scared of the likes of Shaman and decided not to really play Tera Bix. This is where decks like Dragapult and Raging really skyrocketed. They're much stronger, they're much more susceptible, and they actually can deal some damage and actually KO some Pokemon with 60 HP. With Dragapult really has that off to offer. And also having no Clefairies out there makes sure that they don't have this really scary weakness on their back constantly. They can kind of attack freely, but if you lo and behold, Gardevoir is nearly 10%. It took in the gap what Tera Bix was missing. You just chuck a Lily Clefairy out there, all your Psychic Pokemon now hit weakness on your Dragapults and Raging Bolts. And we see that's exactly the reason why Gardevoir numbers has really skyrocketed. It took that number that Tera Bix was really kind of like constantly was dominating for so long. So I do think we're going to see this change quite a bit. Another thing I also need to remember is we had the race of Shaman. It protects all of your non-rule box Pokemon on the bench. But we actually didn't see as much play as we thought it would do. I thought that this was going to be like Manaphy when it was first out and be in nearly every single archetype when we think about like the height of Radiant Greninja. I think Weltering Master Ogerpon is nearing that sort of threat level. It's in so many different archetypes right now, and that's one thing I got really scared about. But most Dragapults, most Raging Bolts, most Gardevoirs aren't actually playing Shaman. They're focusing more on having their better consistency cards. Yes, your Hootus, yes, your Dreepies and Rolts are now protected, but their opportunities to not go this one are much more aggressive, much more faster play. We've seen Arcadon still kind of perform well. Numbers dwindle just a little bit, but they are focusing more on this poison style archetype. When we touched about a little bit last week, we're seeing people play it in our format, and I think this number is always going to be increasing. You have the Petron for that donkey sort of factor. You have the stadium as well, and generally in general, having the way for your Arcadas to hit nearly 300 damage and not rely on that Hop Zacian or this new Zacian as well, which I don't know when we're actually getting released yet from the Generation set, which is obviously really good. We did see some success from the Ethan style archetype, that new Typhlosion deck, which got 2.2%, which I love, which can do 280 damage if you've got 4 Ethan's Discovery in your discard pile. Now, chuck a Maxim Belt or the Black Belt's expertise, you can do now 300 damage, over 300, which I love. Or why don't you put it in Gholdengo? It's having great success right now in Gholdengo. Now we're used to the Gholdengo list. People are thinking of having to Dunsparce right now and post-rotation, have having that good sort of draw factor. But honestly, just having the likes of a Ethan's Quilava, all of a sudden you can use Ethan's Quilava's ability, search your deck for Ethan's Adventurer, play this one, search your deck for 3 Fire Energies, play an Earthen Vessel, discard another Ethan's Adventurer as well, get 2 more energies as well. That's 250 damage and an additional 120 damage for Ethan's Typhlosion could do in the late sort of game. So you also have that single price attacking option that can go through this Cornerstone Master Ogerpon. We see another few new archetypes come in. That's Cynthia's Garchomp EX being 3.4%. I kind of go with factor. It's a brand new archetype. People want to try it out. So I think that's the reason why that number is like that. We saw exactly the same case for the likes of Zoroark and Hop Zacian as well. And that new Crustle, this new safeguarding, which isn't exactly safeguarding as well, because obviously damage counters still go through this one, but it's Aegis Slash, but better. And that's one thing I think is much stronger. Some of archetypes are dwindling just a little bit, like the Flareon and Charizard EX, 2 very powerful Terra Pokemon. One thing to notice here, we aren't seeing any Hop Zacian, which is becoming much more of a spread style archetype, and not really that much Zoroark as well, which is obviously still very much focused on the list which I shared just a few weeks ago. Now, this could be the reason about people were scared about playing these ones. They obviously focus a lot on doing bench sniping damage with Dragapult with Zacian EX, so they could be scared of Shaman, hence why the numbers can be played, or generally not performing that well. As you know, in Japan, the numbers completely dwindle and change and fluctuate so much. We could also see next week, Arcadon could be 25%. We just don't know because a lot of players always play what the best archetype is and what they are excited about. And if we see exactly how the meta really impacts the top four, we can see that basically 50% of the archetypes are still up there, being nearly 12% share each in the top four bracket. The A tier goes to like that Crustle, pretty much a new wall style archetype is really focusing in. Gholdengo and also the Liz Fairy Tera Box. We can see here in the B tier, we do see Hop Zacian kind of being there at that 3.2%, exactly the same amount as Cynthia's Garchomp as well as also Charizard EX as well. I mentioned before that Hope actually become much more of a spread style archetype, focusing more on his first attack, even using the likes of Dustin as well, spraying a lot of damage counters on it, using Monkey Dory, and then also you can get these huge TM Devolution plays, as a lot of these decks are focusing on evolution style Pokemon. So also you can do TM Devo, bring the top Pokemon into the hand, and then pretty much take potentially 4 or 5 or even all 6 prizes at once. I, for one, am very much excited about how this format is really evolving and changing. We can see here the format has slightly changed, but archetypes like Dragapult and Ragebot are still skyrocketed up to the top. Now, let's actually see some of these lists that did really well to utilize some of these new cards from Hot Area Arena. And the first one I talk about is that Gholdengo, and I, for one, really love this one. It is very different to how we've seen this one. Mentioned before, Gholdengo still doesn't know what it wants to do. It was playing likes of Cynthia. It was, sorry, not Cynthia. It was playing likes of the Sizzle. It was playing the likes of to Dunsparce. It was also playing the likes of Reverum. So it had lots of other good draw factors, single price attacking option. But I generally think having the Ethan's line, having the Typhlosion, having the Quilava, as well as also Adventurer, is pretty much the best way to play this now. Like I mentioned, you can now use Ethan's Adventurer, search deck for even more Ethan's Pokemon, or in general, the 3 fire energies you require. You can use the Earthen Vessel, which is also great to get even more energies out of play. You still play the Monkey Dory to move some damage counters around there. And of course, you have the great attack of going over, the great draw factor for this one. You have Unfair Stamp to have that disruptive capability. This really slows down, like so Tera Bix, like so Dragapult. These decks which require lots of combo pieces, it can really struggle with that one. And like I mentioned before, if you have 2 Ethan's Quilava, just search your deck for 2 of them. You can keep one in hand or generally discard the other one through Superior Energy Retrievals, through Earthen Vessel, to make sure that your Ethans and Typhlosion could get to that 280 damage in the late style game, which I for one think is really, really scary as a single price attacking option. Another deck which is doing really well is Yamaga EX. We talked about this last week, and I think this is single-handedly one of the best energy acceleration EXs we've seen in a while, and this set introduced 2. So Yamaga EX, when it moves from the bench to the active spot, you get to search your deck for 3 basic grass energies, attach them to Yamaga EX, and shuffle your deck afterwards. And it's attack for 4 energies, 3 grass and 1 colorless, 220 damage, and you get to move those energies from Yamaga EX to one of your bench Pokemon. And also, you can move it to that Crustle. And what I love about this one is such an interesting strategy. You have a Crustle as well to protecting itself from that EX Pokemon damage, so protecting it from that Raging Bolts, protecting it from Dragapult's first attack, not its secondary effects. The damage counters, it will go through Crustle, so just bear that in mind. But the damaging will definitely be prevented, which is very strong. But has a great partner, has a 3/3 line of the Dunsparce EX. The Dunsparce, obviously, you get to shuffle it into the deck, and you draw 3 cards and you shuffle it into the deck. And you have the Dunsparce EX, which does more damage than the EX Pokemon your opponent has in play. If we think the likes of Tera Bix is going to go, numbers do very well, that's where I think the Dunsparce EX is a great attacking option. But what I love about this deck is it does play the likes of the Professor Cheerio scenario, so it's also the Scoop Up Cyclone as well. Another way to actually pick up any of your liabilities, your Yamagas, your Pheasantippities, your Tatsuguris as well, because you're already shuffling in your Dunsparces through having its ability, so you can effectively just have a board state of just your 2 Crustles, one in the active, one in the bench, and it can be really difficult for certain archetypes to actually go through this one. So again, something to just think about as well, that this could be a different strategy for Wolves. Style Factory, or Yamaga can actually be used to actually energy accelerate 2 Wolves. We've seen that how Wolves are really effectively kind of like attacking right now is having Crispin, is having Turbo Energize. So another way to actually energy accelerate, or why not just play Yamaga? Just move it from the bench to the active spot, get the 3 energies, and then attach them to your Pokemon whatever way you like. We're seeing loads of ways really utilize Wellspring Master Ogerpon. We saw how powerful it is in Tera Bix. Sorry about that. So why not just play it in here? You're already going to NGX anyway through Yamaga. This using to promote your Wellspring Master Ogerpon with a Luminous Energy, so some now can attack with your other sort of a Pokemon as well you need to have. And you can just shuffle your energies back in and actually get them back from having that Yamaga EX as well to bring it into the back to sort later on. I, for one, really find this a very interesting and quite unique way to play Walls. Sorry, we can see how well it has done, and potentially we could see this constantly continue. Or we could play focusing primarily on having other sort of wall style archetype. Like I mentioned before, Crispin and Total Energize is the best way to energy accelerate if you aren't wanting to rely on having a 2-prizer for your energy acceleration. So I think that's another good reason why. And we see we are still playing 2 copies of that Crustle, protecting your guys from that EX damage. But also, I think Milotic is still the best wall. If Dragapult is going to be up there at the top and Wellspring Master Ogerpon as well, it's also really, really scary. Along as Charizard, I think having that Milotic is great for that protection factor, as well as also that Cornerstone Master Ogerpon as well. There is a lot of good sort of things to protect it from. And this is why I really like Walls. We don't have the control factors we have what we've been used to right now in our current rotation just before we get to post-rotation. So I think Walls is definitely the best way to play control. Or why not just play just regular Crustle? This one here focuses primarily on just having a 4/4 line of Crustle, having the Crispin as well as also the this walling factor with Iron Hands. It's a good sort of way to protect your sort of guys. You do have the Hero's Cape, as well as also Cape of Toughness, to make Zero Cluster can have 250 HP, which is obviously very, very scary. This is generally just a really powerful sort of strategy, just protecting your guys. This is pretty much doing exactly what Aegislash couldn't do a few sets ago. It was on the stage 2, this is on the stage 1. This can easily set up from even a team evolution. I, for one, very much think this is going to be a great strategy and Wolf deck, which we really need to respect going forward. Next one is that we have quite a few different Ethan style cards to look at. Now let's look at this Ethan's Magcargo. This for one is very similar to the list we actually just previously saw from the Heavenly Kings for what Daichi created. We can see here is a bit more thinner line of the Magcargo sort of decks here. We also place the Maylene as well, so you can actually draw some cards if you're behind, if one of your Pokemon are knocked out, and actually energy accelerate from the discard pile as well, and not relying on having the Ho-Ohs, the energy attachment for turn if you don't have the energy retrieval or that Night Stretcher as well. We aren't playing the Ethan's Discovery. You are playing the Ethan's Discovery, but you aren't playing the Quilava. Kind of have that single prize archetype to actually guarantee you can search this one. You have to hope you can draw into it from having that Pheasantipity and Mew. Not really any inbuilt draw factor. Rever Room could work in the style deck, but I feel like you need to carry on with those switching effects which you already have in the deck. And instead of having that Pokemon Catcher, kind of going for Counter Catcher I think would be good. This deck definitely needs to have a lot of work to this one, but I think we are in a good sort of strategy for Ethan's Magcargo. Or why don't look at Ethan's Typhlosion? And this one is the deck which is making me really excited and potentially think this is going to be the best way to play the Ethan's deck moving forward. Like I mentioned before, you have Quilava to search for deck for Ethan's Adventurer. And obviously, you can actually use that effect to get the 1 energy you require, or enjoy set up your board state, get your Quilavas, get all of your Cyndaquils, and effectively, once you get all of them in the discard pile, which could be very easy with your your Ultra Balls and other sort of discarding effects, you can also do 280 damage with Ethan's Typhlosion, effectively, potentially as early as turn 2. But you also have other ways to actually boost up your damage factor. You have Victini to make your Evolved Fire Pokemon do 10 more damage. You have Maximum Belt. You also have Black Belt's Expertise to do additional 50 more damage. So I really like this effect to constantly be reutilizing and being this huge single prize attacking option. The Dunsparce is a great draw engine for this deck. Shaman to protect your guys from these Wellspring Master Ogerpons and Zoroarks, which potentially could absolutely ruin a style archetype. And as well, also have Cape of Toughness as well, making them have 270 HP, which can be very difficult on a single prize Pokemon. Yes, it'll be a 2-prizer then to actually deal with. I, for one, really, really love Ethan's Typhlosion, and potentially this is going to be the build which I might be going with for this owner step, because I, for one, think this is very, very powerful. And the last sort of build which we want to look at is the Ethan's Ho-Oh EX box. Going very similar to the Tera Bix, but kind of like utilizing Ho-Oh EX's ability, energy accelerating from its Pokemon to one of your Ethan's Pokemon. As you see, we only play Ethan's Ho-Oh EX, but you have Armarouge to move some energies from your bench Pokemon around to the active spot as well, and some great other attackers as well in the deck. Having Regigigas to get the one-hit KO on the Tera Pokemon, having the Clefairy to get the one-hit KO on the Dragon Pokemon, having Welks from Ogerpon to get 2 additional prizes, Ironheart to take an additional prize. So I really like this one. It works well for Luminous Energy. It works well again all the other different types of energies you require by having that Earthen Vessel as well. I, for one, really think this is a very interesting strategy. We've seen get quite a few top fours as well. But what I love about this one, it does play the Babomskar EX, which lets you search your deck for 3 EX Pokemon, and you can use it on your first turn and put it onto the bench, get your Ho-Ohs, get your other attacking options. Effectively, could be really, really good strategy for this deck going forward. Could this be the new sort of Tera Box? Could we see Ho-Oh Box? We have to really see exactly how the format is really going to evolve. But now let's actually look at Cynthia's Garchomp, 2 very different builds. This one here definitely still goes with the heavy on the tool card style approach by having the Potown store, having the Arven, and a lot of different tool cards to choose from. But instead of playing the likes of these EXP share, it's opted to play the likes of the Upper Neo Energy. It obviously works well with having the chorus as well to just guarantee search it out. Attach those to your Garchomp, make sure you can actually guarantee get this attack option. You're not relying on potentially even having that EXP share in the late style game. Still play the Spiritomb, does play the Rose Racer, does play a lot of good strategies, but it's played 2 copies of Reversal Energies and 1 copy of the Luxray as well. Kind of a good sort of attacking option in the late style game. Just all generally just play it down here, having a single prize Pokemon, do 180 damage, then rely on using Garchomp's first attack to do 100 damage with having that Rose Ray as well to get that big one-hit KO on Dragapult and Raging Bolts in the late style turn. Or you can play this style build here, playing much more of a spread style cards with having that Monkey Dory, having the Ting Lu, having that Cornerstone Mask, going that a bit slower approach, TM Evolution as well. So instead of relying on getting the attack constantly, you can even have the likes of Crispin as well, which works well with that additional energy acceleration. You can get a Dark Energy and Fighting Energy into your hand, Earthen Vessel to get another Fighting Energy. From Crispin, you can energy accelerate that Fighting Energy, and then from hand, attach one from hand, but not from later on, which could see a good way to energy accelerate to Cynthia's Garchomp in the later style game. I, for one, really find this as a very much more interesting style approach. I think the Tinglu is a great sort of synergy as well by spraying with the damage counters on this one. And Garchomp, of course, works well with this sort of strategy, doing 100 damage and do 8 plus 60 more from the 2 Rose Rays you have in play. So, very interesting way of how Cynthia's Garchomp is being approached. And now let's actually look at 2 of the best decks obviously performing in our current format and right now translating very well over in Japan. We can see here Dragapult did actually opt to play likes of Shaman because I think that's really good. You want to protect yourself. If you haven't seen my videos where I play Dragapult against Tera Box, we saw how scary it is from having the that bench sniping effect from the Welsh from Ogerpon. Just play 2 copies of Jacques, so actually you can search out your your cloaks as well as also your Dragapult and all your Dusknoir to line a hugely thick line by having a 3-2-2 line of Dusknoir. So not relying on having that rare candy all the time and kind of evolving into them manually. So generally a very interesting way of approach, and having that Bravery Charm as well protects that Duskull so it doesn't get an easy one-hit KO Dragapult can do from Phantom Dive, or generally Gardevoir as well. We can see here the build is very different, obviously, to where we're at right now. We have lost the refinement curly, so we're playing a 4-1-3 line of Gardevoir EX, the thickest line we've seen in quite a while. But also does play 2 of the baby Pokemon. Plays 1 Clefairy to draw into TF7, and 1 Badoo as well for that disruptive capability. Obviously, a brilliant blender to discard your psychic energies, but also works really well discarding your Pokemon and just bring them out from that night stretch in the late style term. And obviously, Bravery Charm as well, because you'll always be attacking with that Drifloon, with that Scream Tail as well, and that Clefairy EX to get a big one-hit KO lately, or generally to make your single prize Pokemon get these huge one-hit KOs on Dragon types. So very interesting way about how Gardevoir is evolving. We didn't really gain any new cards, but I think the strategy works well against Raging Bolt and Dragapult. So without further ado, let's wrap it to the close looking ahead. Should we really be worried about Crustle? Could this be the next new scary wall-style archetype, the new Mimikyu, protecting yourself from EX damage counters? Or is it just going to be a one-trick pony only for this week? What is the best way to play Ethan's deck? There is 4 different strategies to play this one. With Gholdengo, with the Ethan's Adventurer, playing the Ethan's Magcargo, having the Ho-Oh box, also or just generally having the Ethan's Typhlosion, which I feel like is the main intended way to play this one. I'm really excited to see how this deck is really going to affect. Let me know down in the comment section below what you think is the best way to play Ethan's different archetype, and how good really will Cynthia's Garchomp be? It had a lot of hype, it's got a lot of love, it has some great sort of artwork for this deck, but honestly, it's not performing at all, and it can be very difficult to actually energy accelerate from having that 2 fighting energy requirements. Not really reliant when wasting your A spec on having that double energy requirement could definitely not be the best way for this one. So hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you have, please make sure to like and subscribe. Like I mentioned before, we are so close to 2,000 subscribers, and hopefully we can hit that by the next looking ahead. I'll be back in a couple of days time with some more shorts, and I'm going to be in Stockholm regionals this weekend. So if you're around there, come and say hi, and I'm really excited to play in my first event outside of the UK. So my name is TCG, and I'll see you guys next time.